name's Andrew Moffat. I'm a postdoctoral research fellow at the University of Michigan in the US, and I am the author of the Multilingual Matters book, Second Language Use Online and its Integration in Formal Language Learning. So this book really came about from my experiences and observations as an English teacher. I spent about a decade teaching in Czech Republic, in South Korea, and in Spain. And these were quite strongly monolingual L1 contexts, right? There wasn't a great deal of linguistic variety in the world outside the classroom. So the students were not getting a great deal of exposure to English, for example, outside the classroom. But what was interesting was seeing the students who seemed to be, through their activities online, whether it be through pursuing interests in English Premier League football or through gaming, were seeming to be gaining exposure to English via the internet. And at the same time, I was, particularly in Spain in the latter years of my teaching, I was in Spain developing the Spanish language as I was teaching others the English language. And my language was developing partly through some sort of semi-formal learning through one-to-one tuition, but also through the kind of exposure that you get in that kind of classic immersion situation. So, you know, having to go to the market and do the shopping and doing a number of quite sort of high stakes personal administration things like opening bank accounts, or my children were born in Spain, so registering the births of my children and applying for parental leave and that sort of thing. And in those interactions, I felt very strongly that I was using my Spanish to achieve some very real world results. And I would have objected to being characterized in those contexts as a Spanish learner. Not as a matter of pride, but simply because I didn't feel it characterized what I was doing at that moment. I wasn't in the Department of Social Security to learn, you know, how to say, can I apply for parental leave, please? I was there to do that thing. It definitely aided my linguistic development, doing that, my development in the target language, but that wasn't principally why I was there. And what I became very curious about was the extent to which the internet can provide those kinds of contexts of trying to achieve real-world results using language, even if real-world results just means having someone genuinely laugh at a joke. But nevertheless, real-world results from using the target language. So one of the real foundations of the book is a kind of commitment to studying language use as opposed to language learning, and situations of language use as opposed to situations of language learning. So I'm less interested in the kinds of contexts where people perhaps go online intentionally to find somewhere to practice their English. So maybe they, obviously the internet provides huge resources to help you in your conscious language learning, but I was more interested in those kinds of interactions that weren't primarily learning oriented in nature. And I know that there is an argument against the sort of distinction between language learning and language use, not really because it suggests that everyone should be characterized as a language learner, but quite the opposite. There are arguments suggesting that actually language learning is just a specific context of language use, and I think those are good arguments for sure. But I felt for the sort of theoretical foundation of the book that it was really useful to maintain a distinction between the two things. And sort of going hand in hand with that, as I say, is looking at activities that learners engage in outside of their learning. So whether it be, as I say, following a particular hobby or interest in an English language space online, or indeed work-related activities. So whether it's being in a job which requires a certain amount of communication with international suppliers, using English as a language as the common language. So to that end, I conducted a large-scale survey, and I was working in partnership with Cambridge University Press, and they allowed me to make use of their online dictionary. So I was able to get questionnaire responses from almost 10,500 people in 167 countries, which is obviously an enormous and rich and varied data set. So through the questionnaire, my respondents were able to tell me about the kinds of contexts in which they use their English online, the kind of activities that they engage in, and which activities are most likely to make them feel kind of uncomfortable, and the particular reasons why they feel uncomfortable and what they find difficult about using language online. This in the book is partnered with a corpus analysis of online discourse, because I was very interested in having approached it from consulting second language English users. I was also very interested to explore the language itself to see if I could kind of see examples in the language of the kinds of things that are coming up in the questionnaire as being sort of difficult situations. And bringing those two things together, I end the book by making a suggestion for a sort of suite of activities that teachers might like to try in the classroom, not to teach a kind of set of items that, you know, how to say lol, and that was never my intention at all, but how to kind of teach an approach to language, an idea of language awareness that really enables second language users to go online and to anticipate the kind of very fluid, very ephemeral linguistic forms that they're going to come into contact with, and how these may be very different from the kind of sort of more formalized English that they might come across in textbooks. So if that sounds interesting, if that sounds like something as a language teacher you might be interested in, then please do check out the book. Thank you very much.